So we missed a couple of opportunities there. And so I'm very glad to be with you, even by Zoom. I look forward to being able to come to the campus at some point as well. Laura is also on, Laura Miller. She is our CHEP Care Coordinator and part of our human resource team. And she kind of introduced herself a little bit at the beginning. We also have Kim Evans on online. Kim is also a director of supply chain. She handles the Midwest, which is actually Indiana, as well as Michigan and a couple other states there. So she's also on the line and be able to interject in my presentation and be able to answer questions. So with that, let me share my screen here and we will get started. And if someone could just confirm.
Yes,
can see it.
I can see
All
it.
good, Robert.
Great, thank you. So Brambles, CHEP North America, it's kind of going down in steps. Brambles is the parent company. Then obviously CHEP is a global company, and then the three of us work for CHEP North America, which in this case is Canada and the United States. Mexico, although it's in North America, we classify that as Latin America, so they have a different team there. So I thought I'd start with just a quick video, kind of an inspirational video here. It should come through okay, but we'll try it here.
What makes the world move? What makes it move forward instead of backward? Economic growth? International trade? The ability to feed itself? What moves the world to trade sustainably? What moves it to prosper now and tomorrow? What moves a business to serve the world? What moves it to serve all people? When it believes it must? When it knows it can? When profit and planet are no longer a compromise? This is the dream of the modern supply chain: to eliminate waste, to share the world's resources, to create a better future for business, the planet, and everyone on it. This is how we empower our customers. We free them to serve their business and humanity.
So CHEP, again, is a global company, a global leader in pooling solutions. So we operate in 60 countries, and we have over 300 million assets, the vast majority of those being pallets. But as you'll see in a couple of slides, we have quite a few different projects. But at the heart of our organization is really our ability to be sustainable. And in the video it says when profit and planet are not a compromise, and that is really at the foundation of our company. We've had pallets for a while, and we've moved things around, but for the longest time, really a pallet was one way, and it would just end up in a landfill or something like that after it was used once. It might get recycled a bit, but we really have come a long way. CHEP and Brambles, we go all the way back to the end of World War II, where the Allied forces were doing a lot of work in Australia, using that as a supply port, and we moved, America in particular, moved a lot of forklift equipment and handling equipment there, so that we could load the ships very quickly. At the end of the war, we didn't want to bring all of that back to the United States, so we gave it to the Australian government, and the Australian government founded CHEP, which stood for Commonwealth Handling Equipment Pool. We don't have the breath left to continue to call ourselves that every day anymore, so we just call it CHEP. But it is an American idea that we took to the rest of the world, although it didn't actually come back to the United States until 1990. That's when we issued our first pallet, and that pallet went to Procter & Gamble, and then went to Vons, which is a supermarket chain out on the West Coast. So more about the company globally. Roughly 12,000 loads a day we move of pallets and containers. We have 493 service centers throughout the world, 373 TPMs. A TPM is a location that's actually inside one of our customer locations. We have distributors all across the world. So for example, probably closest to you guys would be like a Dollar General or like a Kroger distribution center, something like that, where we actually have an operation in the back of their facility that's taking the pallets and getting them back to our customers. And then throughout the world, we have 510,000 collection points. And worldwide, we have about 14,000 employees. The rest of this will really be talking about CHEP North America. So last year, we had sales revenue of about $2.5 billion. That has increased substantially over the last 10 years. And like I said, we operated since 1990 with more than 3,000 employees. And we touched 300,000 customer touch points throughout the year. I'll show you the platforms in a minute. This will be kind of the extent of my reading of these slides. As we go through more, it'll be just, I'm probably not going to read what's exactly on the slide. We do have an end-to-end solution. So really what we're doing is moving product from the very beginning at raw materials all the way through to the consumer. The pallet can handle all different types of movements. And then we just go back and start the whole process again. So some of our manufacturers, we have 43 of the top 50 CPG manufacturers in the country. So there are some of the big names, obviously, that you'll know. And we service more than 14,000 of their locations in the United States and Canada. And we do both their branded and their private label. Private label, not only do we just have companies that is their specialty, private label for various companies, but then we also have some of these companies that private label for other products. And then our retailer network. So when the pallet leaves our facility, goes to a manufacturer, the product is put on it, and then of course that has to go somewhere. So it goes to the retail distribution network. These are the main retail distributions that we work with. And then it's ready to go to the stores where we go and pick everything off of it. So, you know, the beauty of CHEP and kind of how I explain it when I'm sitting on a plane and have to try and tell somebody what I do is, you know, I might start out with a question of, you know, did they eat today? And of course, the answer is going to be yes. And what I can say is, you know, I had something to do with that. So, you know, if no one really thinks about pallets, but we really are the invisible backbone. The supply chain could not work the way it does today without being able to move it on pallets, be it ours, our competitors, you know, a true whitewood recycled pallet. It really does make the world move. So this slide just talks about the operating model and how it differs from the linear model. So you can see that we have a few different circles there that we can look at. So when you look up here at the green one, we can go the produce route where a pallet goes to the grower. It actually goes right out to the field. It gets unloaded off of a flatbed truck. Produce goes on it right then. This could also be in conjunction with containers. So I know that when you're in Walmart or something like that, you see black containers with the produce in it. So really those get loaded there. That container goes right onto the pallet and it's ready to go. Up until about, a year ago, we owned IFCO, which was actually the container portion of that, the produce containers. We sold that off to another business. But up until that point, it would have been our product on our product, which is, you know, kind of good. So from the grower, it goes to the retailers, and then same thing with the producers and the manufacturers. So this is a little bit of a longer loop for the producer. So pallets will go to the raw materials standpoint. They get loaded. A lot of times this is either like the packaging material is generally what happens with the pallet. And with the containers, it's more of the raw ingredients. So you'll see the containers here in a minute, but this will be like raw meat or sauce or, you know, something that is transported in bulk and then it's turned into another product. So then when it leaves the producer and goes to the manufacturer, when it goes to the manufacturer, there are two routes that it can take. The manufacturer may actually be able to reuse that pallet depending on what came in on it. They may be able to take off the packaging, put it back into their system, and put their product in a finished goods state back onto that pallet, and then send it to the retailer. Or they can say, no, when it comes in, even though I may use CHEP, I'm not going to reuse that pallet because I don't know the control of it. So I'm going to send it back to CHEP to be inspected. And it continues through this circle. The pallets come back to our service center. They're inspected for quality. They're repaired if necessary, and they're ready to go right back out. Our pallets turn on average of 3 to 4 times a year. So most of the time it's sitting idle with product on it, but it does turn about 3 to 4 times a year. Obviously, the difference in the linear model is one-way pallets go to the grower, the manufacturer, the producer, go right to the retailer, and then out to the landfill. There are some that go back, get repaired, and may be reused by the retailer or exchanged back, but it's a small amount. This is just a little bit more detailed on what's going on. I'm not going to really go into this since we've already gone through the circle, but just a little bit more detail. And Dr. B, I will send this presentation. It is updated from what I sent you in February with some new numbers, but I'll send it to you for distribution to your students. Okay. So the supply chain overview of the network: 110 million pallets, crates, and containers in the US and Canada. So, you know, we had some interesting facts that I forget how many times it can fill up the Coliseum in Los Angeles, or you know, how many aircraft carriers can be supported by the number of pallets based on weight. If I would have remembered to put that slide in, I would have, but it's pretty impressive. We deliver 900 million pallets a year, and I'm sorry, 900 million actual deliveries and collections a year, not pallets. And then the network of 530 service centers throughout the network. And those are all of the blue dots, which kind of actually get lost in those green and orange dots. But we are an average of only 4 hours away from any particular customer. I won't say that 4 hours from you know, a customer in the middle of Wyoming to our nearest service center. We're probably a little bit farther, but you know, for example, in Chicago, we have 5 different service centers in the Chicago area, so that we can get to manufacturers very quickly. From the logistics network, so what you see on the screen here in the maps, we have a cluster network. So this is based on population and an amount of product that needs to go into these markets. So each one of these clusters is managed by a logistics coordinator. Some of the smaller ones, you know, an LC may manage, you know, 2 or 3 of them. But this is really breaking down where our service centers are and where the touch points to the customer are. And an ideal place where pallets should flow from to a particular customer. Obviously, we try to make sure that customers are getting pallets from the closest service center so that we can decrease miles, keep them on dedicated fleets instead of having to long haul things, which takes up our transport costs significantly. We do use about 150 carriers. That's actually down from what it used to be. You know, about 10 years ago, we were probably using close to 300 different carriers. So we've cut that in half. And that really is to ensure that we're driving utilization of fleets down and keeping the costs down. So we do use a lot more dedicated fleets where we're staying within 100 or 150 miles of a service center so that we can make sure that those are turning as quickly as possible. And yeah, so we've looked at about a 20% increase in being able to do that. So I'm not gonna go through each one of these. I just wanted to show you the scope of the different pallets that we use throughout North America. So we have the standard pallet that you're gonna see when you go to Costco, Walmart, Sam's Club, all of those places. The 48 by 40, it's the most standard pallet size in the United States and really most of the world. Europe is kind of, I mean, they use the metric system, but their measurements are just slightly off. But in general, it's about the same size. The fractional pallet, or we call it the half pallet, which is just half of this one, and it's really used for displays. So the large pallet, as it goes out onto a store floor, it's usually used just to pick off onto the store shelves. Occasionally you'll see it at like an end cap, particularly for things like palletfuls of water, or some big bulky type product. The half pallet is really meant to either be an end cap or actually an in shelf. They just slide it right in, and there's so like the bottom, there is no shelf on the bottom, and it just goes straight in. Biggest products here are sugar and some other promotional items is where you'll see those. And then international pallets, various sizes, various dimensions. This is another half pallet. It just goes the other way. This is used in Canada. So it really depends on what the markets need in the pallet. And then from the containers, so we have liquid, dry, and meat. The liquid containers, essentially the walls fold down onto this. There's a lid, and there's actually a bag that goes into it. This is for bulk liquids like syrups, tomato sauce, various things that are going to be used in the manufacturing of a product, so that they can move from the raw materials to the manufacturer. There's a valve on the side, or it can just be picked up and dumped in. And then they just fold it down, put it on a truck, send it back, it's washed and then reused. The dry container is more of something that is used in like automotive for equipment parts, pieces. And then the meat is kind of self-explanatory. Raw meat goes into it as a bulk bin, and then it just goes back and is reused. In fact, the meat bin has been very successful because the biggest thing here is they use a pallet with a gaylord on it. Sometimes they might put a bag in it, but there's a lot of damage that can happen in transit. So you get those bags tearing open. Then you've got a gaylord, which is a thick cardboard container that's meant to be reused. But if you've got meat contamination on that, you're having to get rid of those, and they're not the cheapest thing to be doing. So the meat container has been a pretty good business item for us. And it's kind of deceiving when you see just a small picture. That thing is actually about the size of a pallet and about 3 feet tall. So it's a pretty big container. So another aspect of the business are supply chain solutions. So we do not just deal with pallets and containers. We actually provide solutions to our customers. We have a huge breadth of knowledge on what actually goes on in the supply chain, and what we can do not only with our pallet, but with anything that's going on in the customer's systems. So we do have CHEP Solutions and professional services. This is a smaller part of our business, but as it says, in 3 years, we did help customers realize $100 million in savings in their own operations. So really, it is like a consulting service where we can come in and look at different aspects of the business. We can help them choose the correct loading pattern of their product on a pallet to get them the most use out of it and the least amount of damage. We actually have what we call an innovation center in Orlando. And what the customer can do is send their product there, and we run it through different tests. We can run it through tests on our pallet. We can simulate it being put on a truck and shipped across the country to see what kind of damage is done to it. We can freeze it, we can heat it up, we can do various things to drive improvement in their packaging and in their efficiency. So one example of this is Fresh Step sent us like 3 palletfuls of kitty litter, and we sat there and destroyed about half of it, trying to figure out, is the packaging that they have the best packaging they could come up with? Is there some other way so that it's not going and you always see it on the store shelves where there's just cat litter spilled all over the place. So we can actually help them design their packaging and make sure that it gets to the customers intact. And then we also have BXB Digital. So BXB Digital is a technology company. It's based out in Silicon Valley. And what this is really doing is it's the the IT function of trying to track all of the different ways product moves across the country. So we actually can put a tracker on our pallets. It's an RFID tracker, but it also measures other things like temperature. It can measure acceleration, humidity, light. Does have a gyroscope in it. It can tell if something gets tipped, and it can give them live time of where product is at any point. So they can track all the way through the shipment and see how their product reacts. They can see, if it arrives at a destination and the customer is complaining about something, they can see if something happened in transit. This does not make up a large portion of the pallets that we ship out. It is a pretty small section of pallets right now because it's still fairly new technology and it's not the cheapest. So the device that we put on does cost money. It does have batteries that run out, and we do have to get them back. And when we don't get them back, then that's a hit. So a lot of time, this is really meant for more sensitive products. And I want to talk a little bit about supplier diversity. So we spend a lot of time in looking at all of the money we spend and making sure that it's going to diverse companies, diverse ownership of companies. And we are a global leader in this. So there's a lot on here. I'm actually just going to go to the next slide, but talk about our spend on diverse suppliers. So you can see that we started our journey in 2011, and we really did have a major increase there to get the spend up high. You can see that it's had a smaller growth over the past 5 years, really because we looked at all of our spend and gave out such a portion of it that we were at a position where we were very stable with our suppliers. And so there hasn't been really a need to change suppliers in a lot of areas. And so we are at about $130 million a year in spend with diverse suppliers. And those suppliers being women-owned, minority, what are the other categories we have? Veterans-owned, Black-owned, Native American-owned, LGBTQ.
Yeah.
And so those are really the big ones that we really look at in our supply. And as you can see, a whole host of awards for our supplier diversity. We have a manager of diversity that really this is all he does, is making sure that he's bringing in suppliers that can help us with this, going and talking to different suppliers. He's got great relationships with so many of our large customers. I've been to several different events with him, and the number of people that he knows is just impressive. It's like everyone knows him, and you can't go like 2 steps without somebody stopping him, because he's just so well known in the industry that it's really great to be around him. Until about an hour later, then it's kind of annoying. And sustainability. So we put this kind of towards the end, but it really is a big piece of our organization. So it does underpin everything that we do. The model itself is meant to be sustainable and just continue in that circle, so that when a pallet is at the end of its life, it really is at the end of its life. It has been beaten pretty badly. And so we estimate that the life of a pallet is about 10 years through our system. Now that's an average. I mean, we have pallets out there that have probably been out there longer than 10 years. We have pallets that get completely destroyed the first time they go out the door. But it is an average. We do replace boards and things through the process. So at the end of 10 years, we've probably replaced every component on that pallet if it still is in existence, with the number of times that it goes through repair. We do have quite a recognition for our sustainability from various organizations. The most recent Dow Jones Sustainable, we were first place in 2017, moved to second in 2018, but Laura, you might be able to tell me, did we move back to first place in 19?
I believe we were first last year and this year.
Okay. So, I mean, it really is at the heart of everything that we do. So our 2020 goals, which we've just finished, and we're starting to see our now 2025 goals, but it really was focused around community, better business, and better planet. And so I'm actually going to let Laura talk in just a couple minutes about particularly the better planet and how much we've been able to do and how much our employees can be a part of that. This is just some information about kind of how much we've saved, 1.7 million trees and several other items. But how we get to this is actually, sorry, I'm going to forward here, to our sustainability tool. So what we do is we give this to our customers, and we can actually show them by the amount of pallets that they use and the routes that they take, how much they are saving to the environment by using a CHEP pallet versus, or a pooled pallet versus a one-way pallet. So it's a calculator that they can use to really show to their leadership and put in their annual reports on their sustainability impact. We also have a carbon neutral calculator. So our half pallet, which I was talking about earlier, where it's the display pallet for sugar and seasonal items and things like that. That actually is a carbon neutral. So through the process, we're able to keep our carbon output to a low number, and then what we do is we offset all of the carbon that we emit. We offset that with other programs, so that we can truly say to the customer that if they're using the half pallet, it is carbon neutral. And zero harm. So a lot of companies say zero harm or safety is where they start, and I will agree with that. That we start with safety and zero harm, but really, it's not a place to start. It's the fundamental basis for how we have employees come to work, and it really has to be that before we even think about what we're doing in a plant, we're thinking about how to make sure that our employees going to leave the same way that they came in. So we do have a great commitment to zero harm, and it really starts with our charter. And it's not just injuries to the employee. We also say that we want zero environmental damage, and we want zero human rights breaches. From a human rights standpoint, not as big of an issue in North America as other parts of the world, but this is a global charter, and we have clear definitions that we are not going to tolerate various things. We will not engage in bribery. We will not engage in just violations that we know are going on out there. We will do everything that we have the power to do to make sure that we are not violating these items. And this is signed by every Brambles employee globally. So some of the journey that we've done here from an environment standpoint, provided the right tools for our workforce, and make sure that they have a collaboration in their network and share best practices. The engagement we have seen with not only our community-based volunteer activities, but also the customers that we interact with. Really just having that engagement has been a great thing. And then we continuously look to make sure that that we're not waiting for someone to be injured. We're looking at the near misses. We're looking at the first aids that happen and making sure that we're improving from that standpoint. And then what's new? So this is just a very brief look at the service centers. I'm going to play this video. This gives you a picture of what a service center looks like as a pallet is flowing through it. So you can see the level of automation that we're trying to put in. What you'll see is robotic arms. You'll see, we get to a point where there's a thing with you can see the water moving. That machine will actually be cutting boards off, so it's easier for the repair operator. But let me start this. It's only about 30 seconds long here. So just some pictures here of what you saw. This is the robotic arm that can pick pallets up from stacks and put them down on the rollers. You can see this is the inspection station where pallets are presented standing upright so that we can see the top and then the bottom, and then it goes down through the line. Really, there were two reasons for wanting to do this automation journey. First is to make things safer. The amount of forklifts that we can take out, the amount of touch points we can take out from our system just makes things inherently safer. And then there's the other piece that the work that the actual employees are doing, if you can reduce some of the manual lifting and carrying that we were doing before, makes it a lot easier for employees to increase their production, and it can increase the quality. There's also a digital inspection on there so that we can have a computer take a picture of the pallet and measure its quality instead of having a human who gets tired and wants to go home. And instead the robot and the computer never sleep, so we can improve the quality there. So I've done a lot of talking. And so, I'm going to skip over that, but what I want to do is just turn it over to Laura very briefly to talk about some of the items that we do from our employee standpoint, and in particular, the CHEP Cares organization. So Laura, I'll turn it over to you right now.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you, everybody, for letting me be a part of this today. I am an Indiana State graduate as well, class of 91. Back then, I think we might have still been the Sycamore Indians. I think we might have been changing to the Leaves at that point. But my degree for my issue is actually in recreation management. And it has led me on to run our foundation for North America. So we actually have our own foundation to run all of our charitable giving and our volunteer works that we do with our employees. We are very blessed that Brambles and CHEP North America sees the importance of giving back to our communities and being good stewards of the community as well. And we're able to volunteer 3 paid days in the community wherever we want. So we have a total of 24 hours in a fiscal year that we can choose where we want to go volunteer. It could be a personal passion. It could be a passion that we have as an organization as well. We have 3 main charities that we as the foundation focus on, and that is Arbor Day Foundation, obviously, as we use a lot of trees and we want to be good stewards to our environment. We are now to the point where not only just putting back to the earth what we took out, but we're putting 1 more back. So hypothetically, if it takes 1 tree to make a pallet, we were planting 1 tree, now we're planting 2. So we're exceeding what we take from the earth. Junior Achievement is another organization that we work a lot with in their entrepreneurship, and we do a lot of coaching and case studies and challenges with the students. We have ones going on in Alpharetta, Georgia right now with seniors who are looking at our plants and how we can eliminate carbon emissions. How can we reduce that within our own system and make that better? And they're actually doing the analysis and being coached by our staff and our leadership, and gives them an opportunity to really see a real project that you will have to do when you're out in business. And it really does help us to have a whole different perspective from a different group of people and look at it a different way. So it's a neat way for us to coach and be a part of those programs. We work with the 8th graders on career development and talk to them about all the different types of opportunities we have within our company that they maybe never thought of. Robert shared earlier about, did you eat today? How's the food get on the table? The kids are the same way. They don't know what a pallet is. They don't know what we do. And first thing I ask them, what's your favorite cereal? I said, we put it on the shelf so you could have that at home. We made sure it got there and got there in great quality so you could have breakfast this morning. And they can relate to that and understand. And then I can then bring in different staff from all different angles of our business to learn and to share. Say, hey, I'm an accountant and I work for this company. Look at me, I'm a foundation person. I'm a nonprofit person. This corporation. There's so many roles that people don't realize in our type of business that you can be involved with. So we start there at that junior achievement level. Our 3rd main charity we work with is food securities. So Feeding America is a big program that we're a part of, and we work a lot with the food banks, not only providing our volunteers that are there, but also providing pallets to the food bank so they can get the food distributed where it needs to go. So whatever efforts that can take, obviously that is a big need right now with COVID, and we're making sure the food banks have what they need to get the food out there as quickly as possible. So we're actually sending some extra supplies to them as needed and when they need those efforts and so forth. We also have a matching gift program where employees can make a donation to their favorite charities, and then we will match it 100% through our foundation. And minimum donation just has to be $25. The max they can make within the fiscal year is $1,000. So essentially they can double their donation through that. And we want to support them in what is important to them. So that's really important that we're supporting our employees and not just community efforts, but what is important to them. And then of course we have financial support to a lot of different organizations to further our sustainability goals. You know, I'll be working on that for the next 5 years for our 2025 goals that are getting ready to be released. I'll be part of that team to make sure that our volunteerism is going to hit, planning the number of trees that we're going to be doing, how we're going to get that food security out there and serve how many meals. I think we're looking, I think 10 million meals is what we're looking at doing. So how are we going to do that, and how can we make that effort globally and work on that global team for there? But it's really exciting. It's much different for me going from a nonprofit background to now a for-profit, but still giving away and doing things. I try to motivate our staff. It can be a little challenging, like we have Kim and Robert that are out in the field. They're not with a regular big office like we have in Orlando. We have roughly 600 employees here in Orlando, about 130, 150 in Alpharetta. And then from there, they're just spread across the United States, and all those service centers are in their homes working. So motivating them to do volunteerism by themselves and working towards that as well. But I did put my email in the chat if anybody has specific questions about having a foundation and how that relates into logistics and a global company. I would be happy to answer those as well. Thank you, Robert.
Thanks, Laura. So Dr. B, I talked fast and had lots of slides, so I think I need to cut this down because I do want to make sure I have time for questions from the students. But I'll kind of flip through these slides just over the next couple of minutes. But I certainly want to take questions from the students. I'm not going to read anything that's on these next slides. So I'll open it up to questions.
Okay, that's an eerie silence, but it'll take a while for the students to kind of get in. Taylor already wanted to ask something, so go ahead.
Okay, I have a question about your product, like your product development or product improvement. So
Taylor, you're coming across very, you need to speak louder, and can you please introduce yourself real quick and where you are in the program before you ask the question? And this is for everybody.
Okay, so I'm a junior studying operations supply chain. Can you hear me better now, Dr. B? Okay, so I'm a junior, but I was just wondering about your product development or product improvement. So when you were talking about the CHEP Solutions program, is that something that you also use internally, or do you guys have like a partnership with a material handling company to make improvements to your pallets?
So all of the work for the pallets is generally done internally. So not only do we have the Innovation Center in Orlando, we also have what's called the Pallet Test Track, where we can simulate the life of a pallet, you know, a 10-year life or a 5-year life, however long we want to. We can actually simulate that very quickly. And so we have engineers that this is their job, that they're constantly testing pallets around the world to make sure that we've got the best. And give you an example, we've changed multiple times, you know, the lumber that we use on a pallet based on the strength of it and the position on the pallet that it's going in. We've changed the you know, the steel content of our nails to make it easier to repair, the hardness of them. So all of that's done internally. But we also partnered with a couple different universities on a few different things. This is really more of you know, making sure that that we're having that partnership. We do it with Georgia Tech, with Virginia Tech, I think it is. Georgia's really the bigger one, where we may have a class or a program work on a specific problem, but a lot of the stuff is done internally.
Thank you.
I have a question. My name is Sarah. I'm a senior in the OSCM program. And right now I'm actually writing my honors thesis on sustainability and carbon emissions within the transportation sector. And whenever you said that your half pallet was carbon neutral, I was just wondering, is that a goal for you guys to get everything to be carbon neutral sometime soon? Or is that something that you even envision being possible with some of the different pallets you have?
Well, Sarah, thanks for the question. I actually don't know the answer to that. Our goal is to be as neutral as possible in everything that we do. We do have goals around waste wood. Obviously, there is waste wood that's created. We try not to have anything going into a landfill. Our whole process is meant to be recyclable. So, the wood waste that we generate, we're using into biomass. For fuel, we use it for mulching and animal bedding. The steel from the nails and all of our equipment that we use is recycled, but it does generate carbon emissions on all of that. And so we do try to offset. In certain countries, we're actually testing generating our own power in our service centers, so that we can take the wood waste that we're generating, putting it right back in and generating power for the plant. We use a lot of power, so I don't know that it's going to be possible to generate everything, but certainly it is the goal to be as far along as possible. But I don't know if it's 100%.
And I know there's some testing at some of the plants with solar power as well.
Mm-hmm.
That's helping charge the electrical forklifts that we do have that are not always carbon emission. So there's different efforts being tested out there. I know we do a lot of coordination with our different suppliers and clients on some ride shares. How can we not have an empty flatbed going from point A to point B? What can we ride share back when somebody's headed out there as well? So that's important to us to help our clients meet their carbon emission goals as well.
Awesome, thank you.
Hey, I want a few more questions coming in. I just want to interject real quick because I'm only 3 minutes away from my class that starts in 3 minutes. So I just have to take a break, but I'll actually make Casey the host if he's not already one, so that he can carry on with the process.
Dr. B, I actually have forecasting at 6 as well.
Oh, you have forecasting at 6?
Yeah.
So,
Mike, I'll give Dr. B, obviously you have my contact information.
Yes.
If there's any other questions, I can certainly answer those via email, or if we need to set up a call or something, I'm certainly willing to do that.
I would then definitely do that. And just to wind this down, as you were presenting, I was thinking through this, and you and I have talked about this before. There is a tremendous opportunity for synergies on multiple platforms. I hope the students realize from the presentation how deeply involved Brambles and of course CHEP is towards a triple bottom line approach to manufacturing. It's not just about it's the economic profit, but it's also the environmental sustainability and the social responsibility that all go hand in hand in everything you do. And it's a big part of what we teach and preach at Indiana State. And so they see that in different forms through classroom topics that we discuss. In fact, that's also part of a lot of our research. One of my prime research areas right now is working with the conflict minerals and how they impact manufacturing, especially coming from other nations. So there's a lot of that input or research that also goes back to the students. You did, I sent a detailed note to Kim, just a little bit about our program, but the reality is many of our students, more than 95% of our students, to be precise, they graduate with a green belt in Six Sigma. And so that is something that you normally don't see in undergraduate programs. And so that really provides a different mindset for students as they pursue a problem. The philosophy of approaching the problem is very different when you have that process centricity in your mindset. Of course, many of these students also are extremely conversant with ERP platforms like SAP. Dr. Shikora he's also teaching a class, but he's a SAP certified professional. So he teaches that class, and students who take that course really see the outcome of it when they apply it to an internship scenario where that current company is actually working off of SAP. I have multiple students right now here who have been through internships at companies that run on SAP, and it has been a tremendous addition to their learning path. And so, and of course, analytics wise, we have always been a very, very strong contender, and we continue to walk that route, not only in the context of predictive prescriptive analytics, but also looking into simulations and optimizations in different forms. So I think we have multiple opportunities, not just in bits and pieces with class-based projects or researches, but also for you guys to test drive our students. My suggestion always is to start small. Okay, it should be a two-way traffic. See how good our students are, and then if you like them, then ask for more.
Yeah.
And I want to keep that very clear, because if there is anybody who is critical on their students, it's me. Nobody is more critical than I am, so I know that part. But I would want to see if there is an opportunity for us to take this starting step to the next level. And I would really appreciate further dialogues in this regard.
Yes, absolutely. I'm glad we could get this done, and I certainly look forward to being a part of ISU's program, and I'm sure that Laura and Kim share the same feelings.
Well, thank you to all three of you for taking time out of your schedules. Sorry we ran a little short of time today, and but as I said, I'm sure there will be multiple questions, and once I get a list of those questions, I'll ship it your way so that you can address them all together.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Well, thank you for your time. Good luck, students, on your adventures, and hopefully we'll cross paths again.